Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase the ebook A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 at Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you want, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use the email to contact me. I'd be very happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading is Chapter 31. Chapter 31. Kutuzov fell back toward Vienna, destroying behind him the bridges over the rivers Inn at Bernau and Traun near Linz. On October 23rd, the Russian troops were crossing the river Enns. At midnight, the Russian baggage train, the artillery, and columns of troops were defiling through the town of Enns on both sides of the bridge. It was a warm, rainy, autumnal day. The wide expanse that opened out before the heights on which the Russian battery stood guarding the bridge was at times veiled by a diaphanous curtain of slanting rain, and then, suddenly spread out in the sunlight, far distant objects could be clearly seen, glittering as though freshly varnished. Down below, the little town could be seen with its white, red-roofed houses, its cathedral, and its bridge, on both sides of which streamed jostling masses of Russian troops. At the bend of the Danube, vessels, an island, and a castle with a park surrounded by the waters of the confluence of the Enns and the Danube became visible, and the rocky left bank of the Danube covered with pine forest, with a mystic background of green treetops and bluish gorges. The turrets of a convent stood out beyond a wild virgin pine forest, and far away, on the other side of the Enns, the enemy's horse patrols could be discerned. Among the field guns on the brow of the hill, the general in command of the rear guard stood with a staff officer, scanning the country through his field glass. A little behind them, Nesvitsky, who had been sent to the rear guard by the commander-in-chief, was sitting on the trail of a gun carriage. A Cossack who accompanied him had handed him a knapsack and a flask, and Nesvitsky was treating some officers to pies in real doppelkummel. The officers gladly gathered around him, some on their knees, some squatting Turkish fashion on the wet grass. "Yes, the Austrian prince who built that castle was no fool. It's a fine place. Why are you not eating anything, gentlemen?" Nesvitsky was saying. "Thank you very much, Prince," answered one of the officers, pleased to be talking to a staff officer of such importance. "It's a lovely place. We passed close to the park and saw 2 deer, and what a splendid house." "Look, Prince," said another, who would have dearly liked to take another pie, but felt shy, and therefore pretended to be examining the countryside. "See, our infantrymen have also gotten there. Look there in the meadow beyond the village. 3 of them are dragging something. They'll ransack that castle," he remarked with evident approval. "So they will," said Nesvitsky. "No, but what I should like," added he, munching a pie in his moist-lipped, handsome mouth, "would be to slip over in there." He pointed with a smile to the turreted nunnery, and his eyes narrowed and gleamed. "That would be fine, gentlemen." The officers laughed. "Just to flutter the nuns a bit. They say there are Italian girls among them. Oh, my word, I'd give 5 years of my life for it." "They must be feeling dull, too," said one of the bolder officers, laughing. Meanwhile, the staff officer standing in front pointed out something to the general, who looked through his field glass. "Yes, so it is," said the general angrily, lowering the field glass and shrugging his shoulders. "So it is. They'll be fired on at the crossing, and why are they still dawdling there?" On the opposite side, the enemy could be seen by the naked eye, and from their battery a milk-white cloud arose. Then came the distant report of a shot, and our troops could be seen hurrying to the crossing. Nesvitsky rose, puffing, and went up to the general, smiling. "Would not your Excellency like a little refreshment?" he said. "It's a bad business," said the general, without answering him. "Our men have been wasting time." "Hadn't I better ride over, Your Excellency?" asked Nesvitsky. "Yes, please do," answered the general, and he repeated the order that had already been given once before in detail. "And tell the hussars that they are to cross last and to fire the bridge as I ordered, and the inflammable material on the bridge must be re-inspected." "Very good," answered Nesvitsky. He called the Cossack with his horse, told him to put away the knapsack and flask, and swung his heavy person easily into the saddle. "I'll really call in on the nuns," he said to the officers who watched him smilingly, and he rode off by the winding path down the hill. "Now let's see how far it will carry, Captain. Just try," said the general, turning to an artillery officer. "Have a little fun to pass the time." "Crew, to your guns!" commanded the officer. In a moment, the men came running gaily from their campfires and began loading. "One!" came the command. Number 1 jumped briskly aside. The gun rang out with a deafening metallic roar, and a whistling grenade flew above the heads of our troops below the hill and fell far, far short of the enemy, a little smoke showing the spot where it burst. The faces of officers and men brightened up at the sound. Everyone got up and began watching the movements of our troops below, as plainly visible, as if but a stone throw away, in the movements of the approaching enemy farther off. At the same instant the sun came fully out from behind the clouds, and the clear sound of the solitary shot and the brilliance of the bright sunshine merged in a single, joyous, and spirited impression. All right, so that's chapter 31 of War and Peace. I'm going to now read from A Year of War and Peace, Day 31, the reflective essay. It's Only Natural. Down below, the little town could be seen with its white, red-roofed houses, its cathedral and its bridge, on both sides of which streamed jostling masses of Russian troops. At the bend of the Danube, vessels, an island, and a castle with a park surrounded by the waters on the confluence of the Enns and the Danube became visible, and the rocky left bank of the Danube covered with pine forest, with a mystic background of green treetops and bluish gorges. The turrets of a convent stood out beyond a wild virgin pine forest, and far away on the other side of the Enns, the enemy's horse patrols could be discerned. Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace. These are some of the opening lines from today's reading. Their naturalistic, simple description of the Austrian countryside attains an imperial, meditative state for the reader. The chapter concludes with something similar. Sandwiched between these two splendid pastoral passages, however, is a gallery of brutal human lunacies, ranging from the wanton discharge of heavy weaponry to talk of sexually assaulting a nunnery. The presentation of such sharp dynamics is a classic Tolstoyan literary technique. We'll encounter many more as we progress through the novel. He often employs this technique during a battle scene, or as the prelude to a battle scene. Perhaps Tolstoy is trying to express that nature, in all its wide, eternal grandeur, is absolutely indifferent to the human struggle. That is to say, no matter the folly, the feeling, or the frustrations we experience, nature takes no notice. It does not care. We are nearly nothing, just an insignificant part of the whole. Daily meditation. From everything which is or happens in the world, it is easy to praise Providence, if a man possesses these two qualities: the faculty of seeing what belongs and happens to all persons and things, and a grateful disposition. Epictetus, The Discourses. Thanks for listening. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at Patreon, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links are below. Tomorrow we'll be reading and reflecting on chapter 32 of War and Peace. I hope to see you there. Until then, take care of yourselves and of others.